Morning.
Yes. Um, Good morning, everybody.
Good.
This is the third day with React, and so hopefully you will enjoy it, and hopefully it will make you want to work with it in the future. Do we have any questions about the things that we looked at yesterday and on Friday? Okay, no questions. Then we will get right into it. And we will take a look at how we handle forms in React so that a user can fill out the form, and then we can handle the input. And for that, we need a form. I'm just going to create a file that I am going to be working in, and we're going to get started. So we need the basic structure of an HTML file, and so we can work with it. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to look at how we can create a form. So we have this structure that we worked with before, and it's the same as usual, just less comments. We have the three lines where we import React, React DOM, and Babel. We have the empty root div where the app goes. And we have a script tag where we eventually are going to render our form. or our components, which in this case will be a form. So let's just start by creating a new component. I will call the component my form, and it will be assigned an arrow function. And it is going to return a form. So we will have an input field. First of all, we will put everything into one div so that our component only returns one element. And now we create an input field, and it will be of the type text. And it will have a name attribute, and we will just call it first input. And we will have a button. And the text on the button will be submit. And now let's render this component to make sure that it works. So I am going to open this file in the web browser. And there it is. A simple input field where we can type, and a submit button that we can click that doesn't do anything yet. So we can add an attribute to the input field which is called onChange. So this attribute allows us to run a function every time there is a change in the input field. And every time there is a change in the input field, we can run a function. So we will give the name of the function here. And since we want the name of the function to be interpreted as JavaScript, we are going to put curly brackets around the name of the function, and we will call the function handle change. So now we have to create this function, and it will be an arrow function, and change. It will be assigned a function. This function will run every time there is a change in the input field, and a change in the input field means that you have either entered something into the field, a character, or you have deleted a character. And we will have an argument called event in the parameter, as a parameter to this function, because this function will run when something happens, and when something happens, that is called an event in JavaScript. So when something happens in JavaScript, then an event is created, and with that we get an event object. And we can access that object by using it as an argument in our function. So we can test this by simply typing or printing with console.log event object. Let's try that. I am reloading the page. I am going to open the console, and I will make a change here in the input field. And I got this printout of the event object. So here we see everything that is on this object that we have access to. And what we are interested in is this target attribute, because this will tell us the event object is contains a lot of information, as you can see. But if we look at the target attribute in the event object, then we will know which element this object comes from. So something happened, and we want to know where it happened. So I am saving the file, and I am reloading the page, and now we will print out the target attribute. And as we see, the target attribute is our input field. So now we have, with this information, we know exactly where the action is coming from. So something happened, and now we know where it happened. It happened in this input field. And the name attribute is what can help us to get the data from the input field. So if I print target dot value, then we should get what we are typing. So every time I type in the field, this function is called. Every time I type in the input field, the function handle change is called. And in this function, we have access to the event object. And through the event object, we have access to the element where the event is triggered. And we have access to the value, which is input into the element. So every time I type something, the function runs and the element, or the sorry, the value that is entered is printed. And the same goes if I delete. If I delete a character, then if I delete a character, that is also a change, and that will also run the function. So now let's say that we want to put it is not enough for us that we print this value to the console. We also want to display it on the page itself. So for that, we can use state, like we saw yesterday. We can create a state variable that will contain this value, and then we can display this variable. So let's do that. Let's create a variable, a state variable that we will call I for input, and I will be, no, sorry, we have, no, let's, we have to use, we need, let's call it input. And the setter function will be set input. And now we use the React object and the use state hook. And we will give input an empty string as a starting value. So what we can do in our function here is that we call the set input setter function, and we give it the value of event.target.value. so that the value that is inside the input field after every change will be stored in this variable. And now we can display this variable in our component. So we put another div here where we will have the input variable, and we will put curly brackets around it because we want it to be interpreted as JavaScript. So let's run this code. I am reloading the page. So if I type an L, then the L appears under the button, or under the input field and the button. So we have the same functionality as we had with console.log print, but now we are using a state variable so that we can output the input on the web page itself. And if I start deleting, then the deleting is also an action, which means that every action is handled. And when you do it like this, it means that you already have you have all the data as soon as it is entered into the input field. So you have access to it right away. So as soon as I enter something into the input field, the React app has that information immediately and can work with it. So let's change the form and make it so that we can enter a first name and a last name. So now we only have one input field, but let's change it so that we can have two input fields, one where we can enter a first name and another one where we can enter a last name. Then we start by changing the return statement of the component. So then I will leave this input field as it is, but I will change the name attribute and I will call it first name. And I will add a second input field that I will call, that will be an input field. it will be of the type text. Have the name, last name, and on change, we are going to call the function handle change. So we are going to call the same function. The same function will handle all the changes. So let's see how this works at the moment. I'm saving the file. I am reloading the page. And sorry, I will put a break element here so that we get new lines. I will put one here too. So here, now I can enter the word, and then I can continue. And we can see that it is it changes. If I type every time I switch input, it starts over. So it prints the value from the input field where we get the last action. So we have to fix that. And the easiest way is to have, instead of just having one state variable, we can have two, one for each name. So I'm going to change the name of this state variable, and I will call it first name, and the setter function will be called set first name. And I will create another one that will be called last name. Last name. And these two will be state variable. We get an empty string as an initial value. Okay, so we change set input here to set first name, and we will change the input here too to first name. But now we want to display two state variables, so we add the second one here, and we put last name there. So now we can display both state variables. But at the moment, we still have the same functionality. So if as soon as I change input field, the value from that input field is displayed. and we don't want that. So here in our function, we have to take a look at which input field is used at the moment. And we can do that by looking at the name attribute, first name and last name on the input fields. And we have access to this information through the event object. And we do it like this. We do it with an if statement. If event.target.name equals first name, then we call this setter function. Then we set the value of first name to that value. Else, and I will put an if. We don't need an if, but I will use it just to make sure that it's correct. If event dot target dot name equals last name, then we will set the last name to event dot target dot value. So that we make a distinction between the two input fields, and based on which one is used, we can set the right, we can use the right setter function and therefore change the right state variable. So let's test this. I'm reloading the page. So now here I am entering the first name, and now I am entering the last name. And we get the last name under the first name. So now where there is an action in a field, only that variable is affected. And also the reason why this works is because the component is re-rendered when state changes. So the variables first name and last name, they are part of state. And React keeps track of state. And every time a variable changes, the whole component, which means is re-rendered, which means that this JSX code that we have in the return statement, it runs again. And that is why we get the update, because if the first name variable is updated, then the whole component will be re-rendered and the new value of the variable will be displayed here. So that is the reason we are storing the data in state first before we display it, or we have to store it in state in order to display it. So now if we want to add a function to the button, then when we click the button, we already have the information in our app, because we get the information every time we enter something. So when we click submit, then it's just a matter of handling this information. So let's add a function to the button too. It works the same way as the handle change button. It's just called on click. And let's add the curly brackets, and we will call this function handle click. And we can create this function. Let handle click be an arrow function. And we will get, I don't think we even need the event object here. So here we are just going to log this information, first name and last name. So here we don't have to do anything because we already have all the information that has been entered. I'm gonna reload the page. And I'm gonna type Henke Larsson. And if I click the submit button, then I get Henke Larsson there. So by now, by the time I click the submit button, I already have all the information that has been entered. And I can process it. So this is how you handle a form in React, or this is one way of handling a form in React. And the onChange variable gives you the chance to collect the data as soon as it is entered. So as soon as something happens in the input fields, you have that information in your React app. And then we used so that we wanted to display the name right away as soon as it is entered. We wanted to display it on the web page, and for that we need to re-render the element. And for that we have to use state. So we have to store the information in state, because then React will re-render the component, and then we get the new information. So if you want, I'm going to upload this file right now to Teams, and if you want to practice, then you could put these two divs. Now everything happens in one component. So we have the form, the inputs and the button, and we are displaying the result in the same component. So what you can do as a practice, you could put these two divs that display the data, put them in a separate component and make that a subcomponent. And you can call it display. You can say let display be a subcomponent to my form, and then you can pass the data using props to this component. That is a suggestion for an exercise. What did you think about this part?
We'll practice it now.
Yeah. This is mostly JavaScript. This is it basically is JavaScript. You just have to. The only thing that is new here is the JSX part. This is what looks, which does not belong in JavaScript, which was added later, so to speak. But this part here is pure JavaScript. There is yes, you use the React object and you use the useState function, but these are JavaScript. React is a JavaScript object and useState is a JavaScript function. And yeah, this structuring that we went over yesterday is also new to JavaScript, but it is JavaScript. And another thing that you see here that you did not see in C# is that we can have a function inside the function. So my form is a component, is a function component. So basically it's a function. And inside the function, we have other functions. We have handle change and we have handle click. And that is okay in JavaScript because as we talked, I think we talked about this last Friday, where we said that, I think Hadi said that in JavaScript, everything is an object. And so you can treat functions as objects, and you can also, which means that you can have them anywhere or almost anywhere. So I will upload this file to Teams, and Matt is back today, so we are available for your questions. And I will see you at 1 o'clock for more React.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. See you.
Thank you. See you later.
Thank you.